I hope that you are well, and I also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today we'll be doing our grade 7 English lesson on adverbs. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of English Language Arts. Grade 7. Then once we have selected grade 7, and then we're going to scroll down up until we get to our chapter of adverbs. All right, so our chapter is adverbs. Our subject is English Language Arts. Grade 7. And the lessons that we're going to be focusing on today under the chapter of adverbs is to identify adverbs. So we're going to be identifying adverbs today. And to form and use comparative and superlative adverbs. Right, so that is going to be our lessons for today under the chapter of adverbs. So when it comes to adverbs, right, an adverb is a word that describes or modifies a verb. So an adverb, it tells us more about the verb, an adjective or an adverb, right? So it describes or it modifies either the verb, the adjective, or the adverb. And an adverb, right, it is a word that describes, we said, an adjective, a verb, or an adverb. And when it comes to adverbs, right, an adverb can either tell us how, it can tell us when, can tell us where, or it can even tell us to what extent or to what degree. And when it comes to adjectives, it tell us how, right? So some adverbs, sorry, not adjectives, some adverbs, they tell us how, right? And some of the adverbs that tell us how, right? These adverbs, they usually end in ly. And if we look at an example, right, it says, how well does she play the accordion? And to basically identify, not to identify, but to answer the question, it says, how well does she play the accordion? Then we can say she plays the accordion splendidly. And splendidly tells us how well, or basically tells us how. So how well she plays the accordion. She plays it splendidly. So the question is how? It's splendidly. Some adverbs also tell you when, right? So some adverbs tell you how, and they usually end in ly. And splendidly tells us how well she plays the accordion. And some adverbs that tell you when, right? When will he perform? He will perform soon. So soon can tell us when he will perform. And then some adverbs that tell us where, right? And the adverbs that tell us where, it says, where did she go? She went downstairs, or we can say outside, right? So downstairs, it tells us where, right? It tells us where she went to. And then we also have some of the adjectives that tells us to what extent or to what degree, right? And the question is, to what extent or degree is he reasonable? And then we can say he's not reasonable. And not reasonable is how it shows us to what extent or to what degree. And these are our adverbs, right? And we said an adverb is a word that describes or modifies a verb, or it can even describe or modify an adverb, or it can describe and modify an adjective, right? And when it comes to adverbs, right, it either tells us how, it tells us when, it tells us where, to what extent, or it even tells us to what degree, right? And we see that the adverbs that tells us how, they end in ly. The adverbs that tells us when can basically just you answering the question stating when, because I can't even really give you something like how, right? So we basically just gonna have to identify by looking at either how, when, where, to what extent, to what degree. It's like you're answering those questions, right? All right, now we're going to a+students.ca, where we are going to be doing our tutorial lesson as well as our test. And we're going to the first lesson, that is where we need to identify adverbs, right? And we just made mention now of adverbs that tells us either how, when, where, to what extent, or to what degree. And an adverb basically describing, modifying a verb, an adjective, or an adverb. All right, so if we look at the sentence over here, it says we need to identify three words that are adverbs. Three adverbs in the sentence. It says the day of the barbecue was terribly hot, and the temperature eventually drove everyone indoors to sit in front of the air conditioner. And if we were to identify the adverbs within the sentence, right? Then our adverbs are terribly, it's already highlighted. Oopsie. So terribly is our adverb, and it describes the adjective, which is hot. Then we also have eventually and indoors, which is describes basically our verb, right? So we basically, that is why it says an adverb, it describes or modifies an adverb, an adjective, as well as a verb. So we're going to have to identify then what the verb is, what the adjective is, and so on. All right, it says inside and today are adverbs. Okay, it says the TV station is forecasting severely cold weather. So Ali and I will stay inside today. And if we look at our adverbs within the sentence, our three adverbs that we have identified, then it says severely, which is already highlighted. It is an adverb that describes the adjective, which is cold, because they say cold weather, so cold describes the weather, but yet severely cold describes the adjective. And then inside and today, there are also adverbs and they describe the verb phrase, which is will stay. Right, and now we're going to identify two adverbs within our sentence. And the sentence is, I was so nervous that I clumsily dropped my notes on my way to the stage. I was so nervous that I clumsily dropped my notes on my way to the stage. And if we were to identify the two adverbs, right, that describe two adverbs in that sentence, right, then the first one would be so, which is an adverb that describes an adjective, which is nervous. And then clumsily, it describes the verb, which is dropped. Right? So now we're going to our test, where we are going to identify adjectives. And we know the three adverbs. Sorry, we need to identify adverbs, not adjectives. We now need to select the three adverbs within the sentence. All right, it says my landlord, who is amazingly handy, just fixed my leaky faucet or facet and promised to repair my stove tomorrow. So is it option one, which is amazingly, just, and tomorrow? Or is it option two, which is just, leaky, tomorrow? We need to identify the adverbs, three adverbs within that sentence. The sentence that says, my landlord, who is amazingly handy, just fixed my faucet or facet and promised to repair my stove tomorrow. And if we were to identify our three adverbs, or to select our three adverbs, right, then we'll go with the first option, because amazingly, just, and tomorrow. We now need to select the two adverbs within the sentence. It says the donuts that I purchased yesterday were too stale to eat. So the donuts that I purchased yesterday were too stale to eat. So I discarded them. Is it yesterday and so in option one? Or is it yesterday and two in option two? And if we were to select the correct answer, and then we'll go with, option two, which is, a two also identifies with stale or to eat, one of that two. So option two was the correct one. My dog Astro is completely loyal to me, but my cat generally ignores me. Sorry. So my dog Astro is completely loyal to me, but my cat generally ignores me. And we need to select the two adverbs within that sentence. And if we were to choose the correct one, we'll go with option one, which is completely and generally. All right, it says we need to select the three adverbs within the sentence, right? The TV station is forecasting severely cold weather, so Ali and I will stay inside today. We need to select the adverbs. Is it option one, which is severely, Ali inside? Or is it option two, which is severely inside today? And if we were to identify our adverbs by selecting the three adverbs within our sentence, then we'll go with option two, which is severely inside today. We now need to select two adverbs within the sentence. The sentence is, I am almost certain that I left my jacket outside on the porch. I am almost certain that I left my jacket outside on the porch. Is it option one, which is almost and outside, or option two, almost porch? We need to choose the correct option. We need to choose and select two adverbs. And if we were to select the two adverbs within that sentence, we will go with option one, which is almost and outside, right? Now we're going to form and use comparative and superlative adverbs, right? So comparative is like where you're comparing it, and we can use adverbs to compare actions, right? Because an adverb tells us about the verb, it's an action. So we can use adverbs to compare actions. Then we have comparative and superlative adverbs. And a comparative adverb, right? It compares the actions of a person, thing, or even a group to the actions of some other person, thing, or group, right? It's like comparing a group to another group, right? Comparing a person to another person, comparing an animal to another animal, a thing to another thing. That is what comparative is. It's like saying, um, I'll come soon, but Jack will come sooner, for example. I'm not sure if that sentence is even in line, but okay. Then we have our superlative adverb, right? And a superlative, it compares the actions of a person, thing, or group to the actions of a larger group that is part of it, that it is part of. So we are comparing, let's say, the one person, thing, or group to a larger group, right? We're comparing it to a larger group. And for adverbs that have one syllable, for example, we add er to make things comparative or to make it a comparative adverb. And we add est to make the superlative adverb. And if the base of that word ends with an e, then we drop the e and we add er or est. And if we look at an example, right? Here they're showing us the base, they're showing us a compare, and they're showing us a superlative, right? It says we have soon, I'm coming soon, Jack is coming sooner, will come sooner. But Connor came the soonest than myself and Jack. Because now it's been compared to a bigger group. Close, closest, closer, and closest. And that shows comparative and less superlative. And we see for most adverbs that have more than one syllable, right? We just add more to make the comparative adverb and we add most to make the superlative adverb. So it's the same as now saying that we have a comparative adverb but still say the same, and we have a superlative adverb, right? But here it's just that we have, if we have more than one syllable, like safely, safety, incredibly, intelligent, then you use words like more safely in front of the comparative and most safely in front of the superlative. All right. And then before we continue and go on to our test, what's the example and then test? We have the adverb early, right? And for the adverb early, right, to an adverb that ends with a Y, we drop the Y and we add the IER to make comparative adverb. And we add the IST to make the superlative adverb. So early, earlier, earliest. It's like I came early, right? I came early to class. Jack came earlier than me. But Anna came the earliest than the whole class. So we're comparing her to a larger group, right? All right, so here they say we need to complete the sentence with the correct comparative or superlative adverb. It says Mimi took our defeat. Do we say it is the harder of everyone on the hockey team or the hardest of everyone on the hockey team? The harder or the hardest? And if we were to identify, then we would say it is Mimi took our defeat the hardest of everyone on the hockey team, which means that this is a superlative adverb. We are comparing her defeat to everybody, to a larger group, right? So we say it's the hardest. All right, so now we're going to our test, right? Where we are to form and use comparative and superlative adverbs. So we need to complete the sentence with the correct comparative or superlative adverbs, right? It says the man running the antiques auction even, do we say we talks even fast than Rose does, or talks faster than Rose does? What is the correct option? Is it fast than Rose, option one, or faster than Rose does, which is option two? We need to choose the correct adverb to show either comparative or superlative. All right, and if we were to identify or to complete the sentence with the correct comparative or superlative adverb, we would say the man running antique auctions talks even faster than Rose does or Ross does. So faster than Ross. Like he's compared to Ross, for example. All right. Then it says Lament seems to think the most significantly of all my friends, or scientifically, sorry, scientifically. Do we say the most scientific of all my friends or scientifically of all my friends? And if we were to identify the correct one, remember we said that we have adverbs with one syllable or more than one syllable. And if there's more than one syllable, we either add more or most, right? So we'll say it is most scientifically of all my friends. Now that I have crutches, I can move around. Do we say independently than I could before? Or now that I have crutches, I can move around more independently than I could before. So we either say independently or more independently than before. And if we were to identify the correct one, we'll say it is more independently than I could before. Because it has got more than one syllable. So we add more or most. Joel behaves. Do we say most maturely or Joel behaves the maturely of any young man I've ever met? We need to complete the sentence with the correct comparative or a superlative adverb. And it says Joel behaves. We can say most maturely of any young man I've ever met, right? Because he's being compared to other men or boys. Then Jonah has good posture and sits up straight than Derek does, or straighter than Derek does. So straight or straighter. And if we were to identify the adverb within that sentence, right, we would say Jonah has good posture and sits up straighter than Derek does, because it is being compared, or his posture or the way he sits is being compared to Derek's. As it turned out, our train left the depot much, do we say much later than scheduled or much late than scheduled? So much later than scheduled or much late than scheduled? All right, and if we were to identify the correct one, we will say, as it turned out, our train left the depot much later than scheduled. And if we do the last one, it says, of all the traders at his firm, Mr. Eaton is known for investing the cautiously or the most cautiously. Which one is correct? And if we choose the correct one, we'll say that he is known for investing the most cautiously in town. All right, so that is now the end of our lesson on adverbs. We said that adverbs, it describes or modifies the verb, the adverb, or the adjective. And we have adverbs that tell us how, when, where, to what extent, or to what degree. And then we also have comparative and superlative adverbs. Comparative adverbs, it compares one person or thing or group to another person, thing, or group. And then we have a superlative adverb, right? That compares one person, thing, or group to a larger group or group of people, right? Or things. And if the adverb has got more than one syllable, right, we add most to our comparative adverb, and more to our comparative adverb, and most to our superlative adverb, right? All right, so that is the end of our lesson on adverbs. Thank you very much for joining our class. Till next time, and I really hope that you will have a good rest of your evening. Goodbye.